Okay, so welcome, welcome, welcome. It's been a long time since we were able to do any sessions, and I did explain to people who are on the group, the NGO Masterclass group, that we had to take a break. We had some challenges being able to resource it, so we had to take that very long pause. But I'm really happy to be able to do this again with you and to welcome everyone who's joining us for the very first time and those who um, have always been here. Um, as you know, the NGO Masterclass is something we commenced in 2021, just trying to solve a gap and provide that resource for civil society practitioners, NGO professionals in Africa to bridge that gap. So today we're starting a series on sustainability. So I'll be handling this one for this week, but then subsequently we're bringing other people in to also continue the series on sustainability. So we're starting this series on sustainability, looking at financial sustainability for NGOs. So a little bit about what this NGO masterclass is. Like I was trying to share with you, it's an initiative that was started in 2021. It's not being funded by any organization. There's no donor behind it. It's um, individuals, experts within the sector who are willing to give back to others, around the cross-cutting skills that we all require. So we realize that in our sector, donors are concentrating on the core thematic areas. So if you're a gender expert, you see that there are lots of webinars around gender, there are lots of webinars around climate change, mining, minerals, health, and so on. But then for you to be able to function as an NGO, for you to be able to, you know, do that work with your setup, there are some other skills that you need, like project management, like planning, like leadership, um, fundraising, resource mobilization, sustainability, and so on. So we decided, okay, we want to be able to bridge that gap by, providing training, providing tools and resources to strengthen NGO professionals in Africa to just to be able to aid you to do that work. So this started in 2021. And back then it used to be weekly, every Saturday. But I think that to avoid burnout, we will now be going to do it twice in a month. So there's going to be another one um, every 2 weeks. So we decided that, okay, we want to bring it every 2 weeks so that it will allow time for the facilitators to be able to prepare their materials and so on. So I'm excited to have you join us from across Africa. We have participants from outside of Nigeria as well. So thank you so much for joining today. I know that in this room, we also have experts, so there are also opportunities for us, for you to share as well. So I'll be reaching out to you subsequently, and you can also reach out to us if you want to be part of it, if you have specific skills that you would like to share to other practitioners as well. It's a pro bono service we're offering. Nobody's being paid for it as well. So thank you also very much. So we want to go straight to the subject itself. So today's topic is around financial sustainability, and we hope that we'll be able to finish what we have here. So we're looking at introduction to sustainability, the challenges of achieving financial sustainability in NGOs, the fundamental pillars of financial sustainability in an organization, and requirements for achieving financial sustainability. So that's what this session is going to be covering today. Hopefully, we are able to run it within the time that we have. So we scheduled to do it for 1 hour, 20 minutes. So the procedure is we'll run through the slides. and then we'll give room for questions and for interaction. So I just want to appeal that we are conscious that our microphones are off. Let's please turn off our microphones as much as possible. And then if you want to ask the question, you can um, maybe send it in the chat, or you just use the raise your hand signal and the floor will be open. You'll be recognized and the floor will be open for you to ask your question or make your contribution. Yeah, so as we all know, we are living in a very turbulent world. There's a lot of uncertainty around us. I think that the only thing that is certain in our world today is really the uncertainty issues that we are facing. So for every organization, it's really important that you are able to adapt. You need that capacity to stay alive, to survive, to continue to do the work that you do. And a lot of that requires resources, be they finances, be they personnel, assets, and so on, that you will need to be able to carry out these responsibilities. So what then is sustainability? There are various definitions of sustainability, but I found this quite striking. The first is from a dictionary, which defines the word sustain to mean a verb. That means to maintain, to keep alive, to support, to subsist, to nourish. That's what sustain means. And then sustainability has also been defined as you leaving to future generations as many opportunities as you have had, if not more. So it's about you thinking about the future, not eating everything that is God, like we're seeing in most of our leaders in Africa today. It's as if leadership is not thinking about the future generations. So sustainability is to leave to future generations as many opportunities as we ourselves have had, if not more. And organizational sustainability is now defined as the ability of an organization to produce outputs that are sufficiently well valued so that enough inputs are provided to continue production. So this looks more like a business term. So, but what that means within the context of an NGO, the sector where we are operating, is that as an NGO, so organizational sustainability is your own ability to generate results, to generate impact that are valued by donors, by partners, by stakeholders, so that they are willing to provide you with inputs. Inputs there could be money, could be personnel, could be machinery, vehicles, other assets for you to continue to do that work. So organizational sustainability is about how are you able to produce enough results, enough impact that is well valued by other people who then are willing to continue to sponsor you. So I really want us to keep this definition in mind. And most NGOs are funded, and then our donors, our funders, consider an organization to be sustainable if that organization has diverse funding sources. While we are looking at them to fund us, they consider you to be sustainable if your organization has diverse funding sources, so that if one or two left, no great harm will be done to the organization's capacity to continue to work. So if you've been writing proposals, you'll see that sustainability is a section in proposal writing, whereby the donors are always asking you how you intend to continue the project if their funding stops. How do you intend to continue aspects of that project if funding stops? So for most of us, we strive for sustainability. We really want to be sustainable. A lot of organizations aspire for sustainability. And you see, not many of us are able to achieve that financial sustainability, for some reasons that I'm going to highlight shortly. But there are 7 dimensions of organizational sustainability, and this is according to USAID. So USAID, they have this sustainability index that they've created. And within that sustainability index, which they use to measure an organization's sustainability, there are 7 areas which they feel that every organization ought to be sustainable in. And so you have the legal environment. So under the legal environment, they are looking at your compliance. Are you registered? For many of us in our various countries, the government requires us to be registered. So have you registered? Okay, do you have a functional board? Are you registered with government, to operate as a non-profit or as a charitable organization? And then, are you compliant with the law in terms of the various policies that you have? Do you also have a tax exemption certificate? For instance, as a non-profit, it means that you're not paying company income taxes, value added taxes, depending on if you're providing those services or not. But are you compliant? Does the government recognize that you're compliant? Because a lot of us are in spaces where we hold government to account, but then we ourselves are not compliant in the legal operating framework which govern our own environment. So how transparent are you with your finances, with the law that governs civil society operations in your country? And then you also have the next one, which is organizational capacity. So this talks about how clear your mission is defined. Okay, do you adhere to your mission? Do you have strategic plans in place that are well defined? Do you incorporate strategic planning techniques to your decision making? Do you have a management structure that is well defined? Here we're talking about an organogram. Do you have an organogram, a structure that is well defined within your organization or within the membership of your organization? And does your board actively engage in the governance of your organization? A lot of civil society organizations have boards, but these boards are very weak. So some of us as CEOs, we bring our friends, our relatives to come and sit on the board of these organizations, and then they are not able to question us. So organizational capacity, for you to be sustainable, is your board really functional in that regard? So it's very, very important. So do the board of directors support you in fundraising? And then you have financial viability, which is a subject which we are dwelling on today. So we are really looking at financial viability and sustainability today. The other one is advocacy. So here is, do you have communication lines with between your organization and the government, for instance, or policymakers? Do you invite? How are you with regards to carrying out advocacy within the public space? Do you have advocacy campaigns going on? And how do you interact with the policymakers within those advocacy spaces where you are playing in? Are you comfortable with the concept of lobbying government, states, to be able to pass laws, to carry out some change, within the space where you are operating in? Are you carrying out any reform within the space where you're operating at? When I say space, I know that there are some of us here who are in environment, who are in natural resource governance. There are some also in health. There are some also in sexual and gender-based violence and so on. So each of these spaces where we find ourselves, there are opportunities for advocacy. So how well known are you in terms of the area where you're working in? And then the other dimension of sustainability looks at service provision. So here we're asking if you provide services in a variety of fields, so how diversified are you in terms of the sectors which you're playing in? Are you just solely into anti-corruption, or are you just solely into governance? Are you just solely into natural resource governance? But then within the sector where you're playing in, how well known are you in terms of your expertise? So this looks at your service provision. Then the second to the last one there looks at the infrastructure that you have. So here we're looking at your access to relevant information, including technology, training, technical assistance throughout the areas where you're operating. What kind of infrastructure is available to you? How are you able to access IT? For instance, do you have a website that is functional? Do you have email addresses tied to your organization? What sort of infrastructures do you have? If people come to your organization, can they see that you have basic equipment like computers, you have access to the internet, and so on? All these are areas where a donor, a funder, or a potential partner will be assessing whether you are real. In Africa, we have lots of briefcase NGOs. People establish, go register an NGO, they print complimentary cards, but they don't even have an office space. So even if you say, okay, you're working virtually, you don't even have the basic infrastructure that will support your work to be able to do it virtually. And then the last dimension of sustainability, which people would generally be looking at, would be in terms of your public image. So here is, do you enjoy media coverage at the local or national level? When we say media coverage, there has to be a distinction between making a public service announcement or doing an advert in the media. Okay. What we mean is, how well known are you? If people mention let's say you're in a province, or you're in a state, or maybe you're even operating nationally. If people are looking for organizations who are playing in that field, will you appear? Will your name be there? So what's your public image like? So it's really important, because these are the areas where big donors like USAID, for instance, we usually do an assessment to be able to think whether you're worthy of that partnership with them, and if you will be a sustainable partner. Because the worry is people do not want to commit resources to an organization where you see them today, and then tomorrow they are no more. Even you would not want to work with a community-based organization that you think they are not reliable. So the same way, you would want to look at if the partners you're working with are reliable or not. Other partners will also be looking at whether you as well have reliability. So for those of you who are asking for the presentation, yes, presentations are going to be emailed to everybody after the session. So you would have access to the slides. Yeah. So now let's look at the challenges that civil societies and NGOs are facing in terms of their sustainability. What are the challenges that we face when it comes to sustainability in our organizations? So I'd mentioned earlier that we all strive to get resources, but very few organizations are able to achieve financial sustainability. And this has nothing to do with your creativity or your commitment, because I know that most NGO founders that I've spoken to are very passionate and very committed to the work that you're doing. But the challenge really about getting money is the fact that many of us, civil society organizations or NGOs, continue to have a donor-dependent vision. And when you have that donor-dependent vision, it becomes a problem because there is a competition in terms of the amount of resources that are available to us. And this challenge that we're facing is both at the local or national, that is based on your country context, and also at the international level. Now, I'm going to explain to you the challenge that exists at the international level and also at the local level. For instance, at the international level, we say that while the available funds is higher, they are increasingly scarce due to the growing need and the number of emerging organizations. So every day, people are registering foundations, people are registering charities. There was a time people think that the easiest way to get, the misconception for a lot of people who are not in the sector is that they think that it is so easy to get money. When they see NGOs doing projects, organizing workshops, seminars, meetings, people always think that if I just register an NGO, then automatically I'll be able to get money or get funding from a donor. And then you register it, you realize that it's extremely difficult to be able to attract that level of funding. Now, funds are also scarce because while there has been a quantitative increase in funds, there has not been a proportionate quantitative increase in funders. The funders who have been giving money in the last 20 years are still the funders who are giving money today. So that's where the problem is. They might increase their budget and amount of spending, but then they are the same people. The same organizations that you know, that you've always known in your sector, are still the same organizations today who are still giving money. So that's where the problem is, that there is funds or there are funds, but one, the needs are more. The challenges are huge for the funds that are available. Another challenge is also that the people who are giving money have not changed. They are still the same people who are giving money, who have been giving money yesterday, are still the same people who are giving money today. And another problem is, even where there are funds available, donor interest determines how those funds are allocated. So every donor has an interest. They have priority countries, they have priority projects, and they determine where that money is going to go. So most of the time, they set fund allocation, they determine which cause they want to support, they determine which organization they want to support. That's where the problems are, usually, while many people are struggling to get funds. And then there are other organizations in turn are repeatedly getting these funds. So, because you do not have the resources and you're not getting funds, it now becomes very difficult for you to continue to get to continue to carry out your activities the way that you want them to. So it is my hope that in the course of this series, we'll be able to address some of the gaps that we've seen as to why people are not able to get funding. Not necessarily at the end of this particular today's session, but in the series we're doing, we're really going to address fundraising, developing fundraising strategies, and taking you into the step-by-step on how to write funding proposals. So we'll get to those sessions as well. So what do organizations do to cover costs that exceed the funds received? Yeah, I'm throwing this question to you. In your own experience, could you be able to share what have you done? How do you normally, if you have a shortfall in your organization, how do you normally cover the cost? Can I just get one example? How do you cover the cost in a situation where you have activities to do, but your the funds that were given to you do not cover those activities. How have you been able to cover the cost? One example. Yes, yeah, you can go ahead.
Yeah. For example, if it has to do with activities,
yes,
like for example, the organization I work for, Kodwa, has media visibility.
yeah.
So for the aspect of coverage, we have friends in the media that we relate with, not just on program basis.
Yeah.
We know their birthdays, so we wish them birthday, we do interact, so we have become together. So we can tell them, okay, please, this is the problem. Can you come and cover for us? Then we also have organizations, institutions,
yeah,
like labor unions that we work with. They have hall, so we can approach them. This is our station, your hall. Can you give us, or can you give us at a lesser cost? So the resource persons too, we can. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much. That's very helpful. Yeah, Elizabeth, you can go ahead.
Yeah, good afternoon, everyone.
Yeah, good afternoon.
Yeah, if we have a project that didn't cover some courses, like as he said, when it comes to venue, we normally use a primary school around. We use it as venue, where we just give peanuts something to the headmaster or headmistress, as the case may be.
Okay.
We also, in terms of facilitation, like there is this project that we just finished. When we know that the project didn't cover facilitator, we can use our staff or qualified volunteer who know how to work on that very well, who is expert on that aspect to do the facilitation.
Okay.
That's how we normally, and at times, if it's mandatory that like some blammers, when you are doing this inception meeting because of culture or whatever, they will like you to come with all this guru. The organization normally show that since the cost is a peanut one, it's not something that will cost huge amount of money. We normally from the organization purse do those things. That's how we normally do it. Thank you.
All right. Thank you very much. So we'll have to go stop here now. There'll be opportunity for other people to interact. But thank you all very much for sharing your perspective on that. So we say, what do organizations do to cover costs that are exceeded with that exceed the funds that you receive? So most times what you see is that for some organizations, you see that they increase the workload of existing staff in order to save on hiring new personnel. Some people incur a deficit. Some also try to identify additional funding sources to supplement the funds that they receive. So the money that you got is not enough. You can't carry out all the activities completely. So you're trying to augment. But we've also seen creatively how people on the ground here have built relationships with other partners who have venues who can also come and support on a voluntary basis without them needing to pay. Yeah, so on the local level, the challenges that you face in terms of financial sustainability is that it's often very difficult for us to get resources from within our own country. The act of giving, charitable donations, is still something that is at the early stages. People do not believe so much in charitable donations the way people believe it in Europe, in America, or even in Asia, where people will come and take up courses and are willing to donate to that particular cause. So here, except perhaps you're a religious organization, it's always very difficult for you to get donations from people the way you would usually see when you go to other clients. So, and the reason why people do not give is one is because we do not have government incentives to encourage charitable contributions. Abroad, people are encouraged to give. People give. And sometimes for organizations, when they give to charities, they get some tax bonuses. So your taxes are reduced as a result of the fact that you've given to charity. So the government considers that. But within our own climate here, it's that apart from some private limited companies that enjoy those sort of tax breaks, for individuals, the case is different. And then there are people who do not trust NGOs anymore to give to them. They believe that if they give to NGO, the money goes to the staff or the money goes to the funders or to the founders and not necessarily to the communities or the people who are going to give. And then there is also, in some countries, poor regulations to guarantee the transparency of NGOs. So NGOs are not properly regulated when it comes to, transparency as it got to do with their finances. And so people, because of that, it affects the perception of people and whether they want to contribute to that NGO or not. Then we also have that there is also a relatively small percentage of the population with sufficient means to have extra income to donate. As you've seen that our countries are suffering from huge poverty gaps, lots of inequalities, so many people are struggling to eat. So where are they going to get money to come and now donate to you? Then we have economic fluctuations and distrust of long-term saving plans, which compel heads of families to prioritize the well-being of their family. So all these also have got to do with the economics where we find ourselves. Various African countries, our economies are shrinking. People are really affected. There's a huge inflation, huge high cost of living across various African countries. So people do not even save money in the banks anymore because they are now operating on survival mode. So that becomes very, very difficult for you to attract your resources locally with the ways that the traditional method of getting people to donate to you. So what then is financial sustainability as we move on? So we've said that financial sustainability is a capacity of your organization to get the resources that they need, to be able to carry out or implement the projects that you've defined. And this should be something that should be continuous. So it's about your continuous capacity to be able to get resources to implement projects. Not that you're getting this year. So if you look at some annual reports of some organizations, see that in 2018 they got money, in 2020 they got money, and then 2021, 2022, 2023, there's no resources coming. So that is not sustainability. Sustainability has to do with that year on year, you are able to implement your project the way that you have planned it. So every organization really wants to get resources. At the back of every organization, even the ones who we reach out to get resources for us or to contribute resources to us, also need resources. And that means that for us as civil society owners, founders, directors, staff, having the fundraising capacity is really, really critical for us. So it's really important that we develop that fundraising capacity. Now, here's a question for us that I would just like you to type what you think. The question is, is it not true that if we are non-profit organizations, we are not allowed to retain more money than we can spend? Is it true or not? That as an NGO, you are not allowed to retain more money than we can spend? What's your own answer? Just type it out on the chat if you can. Okay, thank you. Not true. Someone saying I should expatiate. So I'm asking a question. So the question I'm asking is, as an NGO, are you allowed to retain more money than you can spend? Say you're giving say 10,000 US dollars for the sake of people who are from different countries. So you're giving 10,000 US dollars and then you are only able to spend $8,000. Is it true that you can keep the $2,000 left? So I will, okay, not true. So I just want us to respond via text because of time. I don't want us to stay beyond the time that I've allocated. So hopefully we are able to go further and finish up. All right, thank you for the responses. Not true, yeah, because you have to report to everyone. All right, thank you. Now, the fact that you are a non-profit organization does not mean that you should be operating at a loss. That's something I want us to understand. The fact that you're not making profit doesn't mean that you should be running at a loss, such that you are using your own money to be even supporting the project that you're working on. So that's one thing you need to realize. And it's not true that you cannot keep money that is left. While you may not spend money for the purposes unrelated to your mission or distribute profits for personal gain, you can actually retain money in your organization. You can actually retain money from the project. And that's something that I will be sharing with you during this series, how bigger organizations are able to do it and how you can also do that as well. So it's not true that you are not allowed to retain more money than you can spend. You are absolutely allowed to do that. But then there is a legal process for which you can do. There is nobody prohibiting you from generating surplus any year in your organization. So surplus generation is a need, it is not a luxury. And it is our obligation as NGOs to be able to have a surplus, because that surplus is crucial to planning for the future, as well as you being able to meet your current challenges. So if you do not have an income surplus, how will you be able to respond to changes in your environment, in your communities, and when you have the opportunity to respond? How can you take precautions against risks, against uncertainty, if you do not have a surplus? So every organization should have a surplus in their budget that can take care of unforeseen circumstances. It's not every time that you should be running. There are some times where there are some issues that are going to happen in the communities that you need to go and do needs assessment, so that you use that needs assessment to get funding. Unfortunately, some organizations are unable to do those immediate needs assessment with their own resources because they've not been able to keep surplus in their organizations to cater for those kind of outcomes. So when we say that you have financial sustainability, we are talking about your capacity to obtain revenues in response to a demand in order to sustain productive processes at a steady or growing rate to produce results and obtain a surplus. It's very important that you should be able to have resources available that you respond to needs. And then you say, this is what we have been able to do. and we are looking for funders to now come and support us to scale up. But where you are not able to respond at all, then that's a problem. So it's also important for you to know that sustainability can be achieved at the project level, at the program level, and even at the organizational level. So for you to survive, it means that you need to have financial sustainability. Unfortunately, in Africa, most of the organizations established by locals, like by indigenous, by citizens, by Africans, are not financially sustainable. They cannot survive beyond the tenure of their founders and their EDs. So sometimes the organization might be doing well because you yourself as a founder, you have a good rapport, you have credibility, people trust you. So they give money because of you. And then what happens when you step down? And that is why you see that in most organizations, the founders are unable to retire. Because the day they retire, the day everything collapses, their organizations cannot stand. And so that's a problem. That's a big red flag. You need to be able to have systems in place whereby the organization can even do better beyond you. So the funders that we've been getting money from, most of them are established by families that have since passed on generations ahead, but they put systems in place to continue to carry on the work. That's why you have organizations that 30 years old, 40 years old, 70 years old, as the case may be. But our organizations, are only running based on the lifespan and the time that we as founders can still provide. The moment you say you want to retire, you're just worried. How will this organization survive? How will it survive? But that's not how it's supposed to be. And I will be showing us within this series what we need to do to ensure that our organizations can outlive us and can function without us. And then we can move on to do other interests, things that interest us while that organizations are still there. So a few questions I want you to think about is, do you know if your organization has a surplus, a deficit, or a zero balance? And if there is a surplus or deficit, do you know where it is coming from? And has financial sustainability been established as a goal in your organization? If so, have you achieved that goal? Okay? Or has the financial goal been identified? Do you know how much in terms of the local currency or the US dollars that you need for your organization to be financially sustainable? Do you know how much you need each year for your organization to run successfully? And then can you say that my organization can operate in the next 5 years, in the next 2 years, with or without funding? Those are very important questions to answer. So I'm seeing your questions. We'll pause later, please, and then we'll respond to this question as well. So it's in the parking lot. I'm conscious of the time, and then we'll continue shortly. Yeah, so as we move on, we're saying that a lot of times we often think that financial sustainability is about getting additional streams of income, or like they always say in business, you need to get multiple streams of income in order for you to be rich. You need to get multiple streams of income. But one thing I want you to realize is it is irrelevant whether we were good fundraisers or are able to generate our income if we lack the procedure for administration and finances, and if we lack fiscal planning that is done in conjunction with our strategic planning. So you see that it's not really about your ability to generate more if you're not able to manage what you have. So financial sustainability also has got to do with having strong financial administration and processes in place. Many of us, if you're a small organization, might not have an accountant, but then you need to use the services of an accountant And you don't necessarily need to employ one. You can have one, that can be doing part-time for you. You can also have one that, you can have one that can be doing part-time for you. You can also have one that can be volunteering. Okay, so we'll talk about all that subsequently. But one of the ways I always tell people is there are times people we have all the chartered accountants who have retired, and then they are looking for what to do. Have you really engaged them to say they can be coming to volunteer in your organization? A lot of people just need a place to continue to do the things that they were doing before. But they might not be able to commit all the time for you, but they are able to do maybe a few hours or provide a few hours a week for you to help you reorganize your financial procedures in your organization. Is really, really critical. So the first pillar, we're looking at the pillars of financial sustainability. This is really why we are here. What are the pillars for getting financial sustainability in your organization? There are 4 pillars. One is strategic and financial planning. The other is income diversification. Then we have sound administration and finance. And then the final one is own income generation. So in terms of pillar 1, which has to look at the financial and strategic planning of your organization. This is really important. It's important because for every organization that you carry out activities, there is a risk of focusing on the day-to-day management issues and you're losing sight of long-range objectives. And so strategic planning helps you to clarify what your mission is and what your objectives are and how you can prioritize your activities in order to accomplish them. And so it's very, very important that in order for you to even access funds from international donors, you need to have strategic planning in place. So you need to have good strategic plans. And so you need to ask yourself, do you have a strategic plan? And in that your strategic plan, have high, medium, and low priorities been set as part of the strategic planning processes? And do you know how much it will cost you to implement the activities described in your strategic plan? So one of the things I've seen is that most organizations have strategic plans, but they do not have costed plans. So they've listed out the objectives, the goals, and so on, but they've not taken the time to look at how much is this plan going to cost us. So you might have a strategic plan, but then the plan is not costed. You don't know if you need 1 million, 10,000, 100,000, and so on to be able to achieve the objective. So a strategic plan that has not been costed is incomplete if you do not know how much it will cost you to achieve the objective that you set that year. You do not even know how much you should be fundraising. So any amount of money that you get, you'll be thanking without knowing whether you are just 10% far from achieving the goal. So you do not even know what amount you should be gunning for and how much you should be asking. Any amount that comes, you'll be taking it because you have no idea exactly of the amount of money that you need to achieve that plan. So if you've got a strategic plan, you also need to have a financial plan. That's something that I've just said. That a financial plan is it has to be a dynamic document because it changes frequently in that prices fluctuate. There is also inflation. So you have to be looking at a financial plan each year for your strategy. If you have a 3-year strategic plan, you need to have a financial plan for each year. It's okay, in year 1, this is where we are on the strategy, and this is how much we need. In year 2, this is how much we need. You cannot say you have a budget for 2024, and then you are using that budget for 2024 or that plan for 2024, and you're using it for 2025. So that's not going to work out for you. So the purpose of a financial plan, like I've said, is to determine if you are going to have sufficient resources available in the medium term to meet the objectives that you have in the strategic plan itself. So your financial plan looks at scenarios. It sets scenarios for you. It looks at, okay, this is a minimum amount of money that we need to have. And then this is the maximum that we need to have. So you look at what are the priorities in terms of the minimum amount. You're looking at what are those things we need to prioritize that are so important for us in case we do not have money to do everything. What are the 2-3 things that we need to do and how much do they cost? He said this is the minimum amount that we need to be able to fulfill the mission or the vision that we have in the strategy. Now, the second pillar has to do with income diversification. And as you can see here, they always tell us that do not put all your eggs in one basket, as they can break. Something can happen. If that basket gets missing, so all your eggs have gone missing as well. So here we're looking at not only your internal income generation, but also the number of sources that provide you with funding. It's not about how much money can you raise, but how many different people can we meet to get that money? That's what we mean by income diversification. And it is very important that you diversify your revenue sources to become more self-reliant. If you have only one donor, then you are at the mercy of that one donor. The donor can wake up and say, look, we do not have money. They can wake up and say, look, our priorities have changed. And so also, all the lofty goals and the promises you've made to the communities will be cut short because the donors have changed or the donors have moved on. And we have seen cases in our various countries with funders like FCDO, the Foreign Office of the British government. We've also seen with the United States government. We've seen with some foundations as well that have written to us in the middle of implementation to say, well, no more funding again, or this year will be your last year of funding. Whereas you were hoping to have like a 3-year funding or a 5-year funding, and after 1 year, they cut it. It's not even as if it's not your fault, but that their priorities have changed, and so also it affected you. So diverse revenue sources support autonomy, it supports flexibility, and it also gives you some security. And here, in terms of being able to diversify your funding, there are usually 2 methods. And the very popular one is the traditional method of fund revenue generation, where you're looking at grants. And then there is also the cost recovery. The cost recovery, full cost recovery, and then there is public contributions and donations, gifts in kind. So grant is something that is very popular, where you are meeting donors, writing to donors, responding to sending a proposal or a concept note, and then the donors are going to fund you based on what you've written. So what like I explained for those who joined earlier, we have a session coming that is going to be looking at grants, how to access them, how to write them, how to respond to those applications, and we're taking you through the technical aspects of project design to the relationship building and so on that you need to do. So that's going to be covered. But something very interesting that I like really is full cost recovery. Full cost recovery. So anybody who is familiar with full cost recovery and is using full cost recovery in their organizations, just type yes in the chat. Maybe everybody's doing it, so I might just skip it. Full cost recovery. Anybody using it now is being effective in your organization? You're using full cost recovery. Can you type yes? Okay, we got a no. Okay. Any other response? Full cost recovery. Okay, so we have a couple no and we have a yes. Thanks for everyone who's responded. Okay. Okay, thank you for your responses. Now, full cost recovery is one area where bigger organizations are using to get a surplus in the project. Now, for you to do this, you've got to have a policy. In the past, I think I've done a teaching on this, but because we've expanded now, we have people from different countries joining. I'll still repeat it again subsequently. But let me just tell you that full cost recovery is a procedure whereby you are using to recover costs, to recover core costs in your organization. And core costs are also referred to as overhead, indirect costs, support costs, central costs. Now, donors always argue with this. They don't want you to have it, but they are collecting it. Okay, so most times you see that somebody gives you money, so they give you, let's say you get a grant of, I'm bringing the figure very low. Say you get a grant of $10,000, and they tell you, we want you to implement this activity. And after that $10,000, you're not even giving money for your staff, but they're saying everything should just be activity-based. It's not for your own organization. And many times, because we do not have choices, or because we don't know our rights, we accept those kind of contracts. And you're now going to implement projects for donors, and you're not making anything from it. So you need to have a policy in your organization that mandates you to recover costs for every project that you embark on. So that when the donor gives you, and when you write that you're going to recover this cost, and they argue, you show them a policy. They will know that you sit up, because the donor allows you. They understand this, and they know that you must recover costs. For instance, some of you are using staff. You're not even putting time, the actual time. Sometimes we charge 2% of a staff time into a project. Well, that staff is going to be spending more than 80% of his or her time on that project. Yet you're not charging for it, and then you are now making up the remaining 95% of that salary from other projects as well. So you're not doing the donor any favor, or you're doing the donor's favors, and then you're shortchanging yourself. So many times you have vehicles that you're using for that project, you're not charging it. You have computers that you're using for that project, you're not charging it. You're using internet, you're using disposables like inks and others, you're not charging it into the project. You are not, benefiting yourself. So when we talk about full cost, our costs directly relating to the project, to the plus the organization shares of the overhead. So what that means is, whenever you're writing a project or you are given a project, you need to charge for the activities and say, okay, we're going to use 2,000 to implement this workshop. But then we're going to assign 2 staff. That staff has to be paid salary. You negotiate that salary with the donor. You are also going to be renting venues. Even if you have an office, say you have an office space that you are using for projects, do you charge the rent of that office to a particular project? or you allow, for every project that is being implemented in your organization, there has to be a percentage of rent that that project ought to pay. That is a smart way of recovering those costs. It doesn't matter whether another project has paid you 100% for that project. It's irrelevant. It's irrelevant. That's the contract you have for the other project. But for this project that you say is having this small money, you should be able to charge all the costs that you think, all the costs that you think that you need to have. Now, every donor must respect people's policy. If a donor comes to you and say, this contract is just for activity, and then you need to say, okay, we have a full cost recovery policy. You send them the policy, let them see. At that point, they are going to negotiate. If your policy says that you're going to charge maybe 20%, of the cost to support this, that the donor might say, okay, well, because of the money that is small, we will not be able to pay 20%, but we'll give you 8%, or we'll give you 5%. So that 5% is better than not even having anything at all. But sometimes we are too desperate to work with donors that we take everything that the donors want. The donors know that they charge these things, and they even have it in their policies. Like the bigger donors, like the multilateral donors, they have a policy. They understand that our organizations will need, and that's why they give you up to 20-25% as cost recovery. They allow you for cost recovery. Sometimes they even allow for institutional development as part of the project. They allow for institutional development. But these are things that you need to understand so that you'll be able to take advantage of and be able to utilize it. So there's a full session. It's a full topic on its own, so don't worry about that. So you also have sources like public contributions, membership fees. Many of us are associations. We are a membership organization. Are people paying their dues? And then you have event income. So sometimes you do conferences, you do workshops, you do trainings, and people pay for that, and you're able to generate income as well. So you have general donations from other sources, or people, you call for donations and people give you gifts. Maybe somebody donates a vehicle, somebody donates, or a company donates cars, computers, and so on. Those are the traditional methods of getting funds. Now, there are new methods as well, and this would require you thinking outside the box. One of them is social enterprises ventures. So you've been able to set up a social enterprise, okay, to begin to think about doing something, a cause. And this particularly works for people who are, maybe you're doing climate change, you're doing environment. You could begin to say, okay, we want to empower communities by producing products that will sell cheaper to them than what is in the market. And then whatever proceeds we get from that, we're applying it back into the organization. So, but that also means that when you're setting up your organization and registering it with the government, you should be able to write that these are some of the things that you want to be doing. And so that there's no conflict in terms of what the government recognizes you to be able to do. Or these are also things that you need to be able to discuss with your board, and then for them to maybe review the constitution of your organization to be able to allow you to function this way to generate resources. There's also cost-related marketing. So what most times people do is, for instance, again, you're partnering with a private entity. Say there is a company that is doing cook stoves, and you are working in the climate change space. You're trying to ensure that communities have clean cooking. And so you're saying, okay, we have these communities that need this. We can market this cook stove for you. And then at the end of the day, you are going to support us to say, okay, you're going to donate some of the percentage of the proceeds to our organization to continue to create awareness, or you're going to give us this your cook stove at a discounted rate so that we are able to make a profit from it to now continue to use that profit to support communities further. That's what people do. So sometimes you see them organizing events and allowing exhibitors to come and exhibit and encouraging you to buy those products that are exhibited is because there is that sort of partnership between that NGO and that innovator or entrepreneur who's providing that service so that the organization can generate income through that partnership. And there's also a fee for a service whereby you are using your expertise, for people to pay. So you generated a lot of capacity in a certain area. How are you impacting others? Are you able to provide services in that area where you've generated capacity in, and then people, the public, other civil societies will come and pay you to get that expertise, and then you are able to generate resources from that. Most of these things in some of the organizations I've worked in, we've practiced them, we've applied them, and they're continually doing it, and it's also working for them as well. So I will pause here for now and open up the floor for interaction from everybody. If you want to contribute, if you have a question from what we've done so far, you can ask your question. I realize that 1 hour, 20 minutes will not be enough to exhaust what we have, but whatever is left is small compared to what we've already done. So the floor is open. If you have any question, any comments you want to share, you can also ask your questions or comments. Yeah. Yeah, Bernard, you can go ahead. Unmute yourself and go ahead, Bernard, please.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, yes.
All right, thank you so much, Mr. Vincent. This is an insightful presentation. Thank you so much. I wish we have more time so that as you proceed with the presentation, we have time to discuss some of these important issues that you have raised. I mean, most of these things you have presented are very practical, and these are the challenges that we are facing in NGO every day. Sometimes they are not just, they are beyond just the practical, the theory that we have. Like some of the donors, the challenge is with the donors. Most of the time, they impose things on us that they know themselves that these are not practical. But like you said, sometimes out of desperate, we just have to abide with some of these things. But I just wanted to make a general comment of some of these things that you made. We have to keep pushing back to the donors. Some of them, they just don't want to allow us to do the thing that we need to do simply because that's how they are also surviving. And so we have to just keep pushing back and negotiating with them. Sometimes we have all these policies that you mentioned, we have all of them, they are put in place, but they just come and say their policy do not allow this. So you may have the policy, but they will say their policy do not allow this, and because they are the one giving you the money, they overrule you with your own policy. But this is something that we have to start advocating for and not giving up. I feel that I wanted to add to what you have said. Thank you.
All right, thank you so much. Yeah, Taiwo.
Thank you. There are two things.
Yeah.
The first one is what is just as a policy. Some donors indicate it in their call for proposal that they do not fund personnel. They do not fund, they do not have a provide for institutional support.
Yeah.
So just like say, you can have policy on that. It means such grants in the first place, you will not apply for it.
Yeah.
Or if they have stated it in their call. Why some donors specifically say they fund institutional capacity, this thing, that you can even apply for it. Then the second one is on producing maybe mementos, things you can sell, exhibit. There are two types of registration in Nigeria, maybe the incorporated trustee and then the public and a limited guarantee by guarantee.
Yeah.
I think it's only by guarantee that can do all those productions and so incorporated trustee are not allowed to do such things. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Thank you for your contributions. Do we have any other person? Any other comments? Any other questions? Yeah, Queen, yeah.
Okay. Good afternoon, Mr. Vincent. Good afternoon, everyone. I want to appreciate Mr. Vincent so much for this great opportunity he has been providing for us. Some time ago, some of us were following, but at a point, we could not see him again. I so missed him. Thank God he's back today. Mr. Vincent, thank you so much for coming back again. So, hello, can anyone hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you. Right.
Okay. All right. So you talk about sustainability and you talk about streams of sustainability, and I just had some ideas that I would love to share with my colleagues here. I actually have an NGO of my own, but I've worked with couple organizations, and I think I've picked from them, and I'm planning to work towards that. Like the recent one I work with is owned by missionaries. It's opened by Reverend Sisters. But what they actually did by sustaining that organization was to open a big farm where they have birds that produce eggs, and they have broilers where they sell when they want to sell. They have pig, they have fisheries, and and then they have a candle factory. They also have where they produce this communion that they normally take in the Catholic Church, something like that. So these are all the streams of their sustainability. So when their organization run out of funding, they go back to those strategies and sustain the organization pending when they are sourcing for funding. And again, I think there was a time I also heard that Oxford, that we heard about so much, also started somewhere. I learned that they started from selling okrika like that, and then they developed into a bigger and bigger, and today Oxford is funding a whole lot of organization. So those are the ideas I've also gathered around, and I feel since Vincent is also dishing out free information here for us, I should also share out. I don't know who it might help, but I think it will help. And then recently we also have this social media monetization, that a whole lot, some of us have social media handles that we can monetize them, put a lot of content there that maybe Facebook can also start paying us from there. We can also get funding from there to sustain a whole lot. So these are the ideas I've gathered around, and I feel I could share with my colleagues here. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Queen, for that contribution. Do we have anybody else want to share? Okay. All right. Thank you. So, yeah, please, yeah.
All right. Thank you so much, Mr. Vincent. Thank you for this session. It was really informative. So there was one of my questions I asked that you said it's going to be in the parking lot. When you ask the question of what do organizations do to cover costs that exceed the funds received. So from the question I asked was, how do you infuse those costs into the budget without breaching integrity and budgets, without budget padding? And I think from what you shared about financial sustainability, when you talk about NGOs utilize infusing their whatever the using their policies, as a tool. So I think that has addressed it partially. But in a situation where I want to know what's the recommended percentage that an NGO should use. I know of an NGO that says, I don't know whether they have it written down, but they said that they have 70%, that their policy says that they have 70% for the for full cost recovery. I don't know, 70%. I don't know. I feel that is just way overboard. How would you present that before the donor and it is acceptable? How can you use 30% to do the core project and then save up 70% for the organization? So what would be your advice in a case like that?
Okay, thank you. So I haven't seen anybody who will give you 70% for staff payment and then 30% to do the core activities. So usually it could be the other way around, like 70% for the activities and then 30% for your overhead. Sometimes I've seen people collect up to 40%, okay, from them, but usually to be safe is between 8 and 20 that most organizations want to give. But then one of the things is that you try as much as possible to ensure that your staff time is allocated into it. So all your staff should be, even if somebody is going to prepare the financial report, then the accountant or the financial person should have some time into, even if it's 2%, even if it's 3%, they should be charged to it. The program people should be charged to it. Whoever is supervising that program person should also be charged to that. So that's some of the ways that you allocate. Now, it's about being creative, right? So sometimes you have, like I was explaining, so you could have project activities that involve you going to the community and your organization has a car. And then you're using your company car to that place and you're not charging the logistics component of that project to the organization. You're cheating yourself in that the fueling, changing of oil, the servicing, the changing of tires and all that you do, who bears it? The project should be able to pay. So those are some of the creative ways that people do that without necessarily having to pad budget. I've seen extremes. Some extreme cases have been that people have vehicles that the organization bought, and then they register it as a car hire service. So I don't know how that works, but I've seen that. I've worked in places where that's done. And then for those car hire services, the company, because most organizations have internal receipts, so they will issue internal receipts for that. Instead of you using the Uber, they'll be able to say, okay, this is what we're using our vehicle, and then we use internal receipts for that particular purpose. So especially for small organizations whereby they are not giving you a vehicle, the company is not buying a vehicle for you, donor is not buying a vehicle for you, so you should find a way to do that. But the first step I want us to do is to have a policy in place for cost recovery. And then for that policy, once it's stated there, when the donor comes, you show them these are policies, and then they are open to negotiation. Because they have a policy, they always want to respect the policy, because your organization's policy we usually supersede the donor policy, in that once you have a policy, you show them this is the policy in our organization. For instance, I work in an organization that does not pay per diem, but I have subgranted money to people who charge per diem, because they show me a policy that I have a policy for per diem. I cannot say because I have a policy for no per diem, you shouldn't charge per diem. You've shown me once you do something, let it be backed by policy. But when you do not have a policy in place and it's a practice, that's when it becomes a problem. Yeah, I'm Eguavon, you can go ahead, please. We're running out of time. Eguavon?
Thank you very much. Good afternoon, everyone. So again, my question is around cost recovery, and I'm trying to be clear on your position, or should I say advice. Say you are applying for a small grant, say $10,000 or whatever grant, and then they say administrative costs are capped at 10%. Is your suggestion to go ahead and still apply and budget above that 10% if you have a cost recovery policy, or is it to sit it out? Because I think one of the previous speakers said you just don't apply for that grant. So would you suggest still applying above that 10%, and then say submit your cost recovery along with the application? You know, what's your
sorry, what's your question? I
on
was
that?
distracted. You say what? Repeat the question again.
Okay, so I was just saying that if you're applying for a grant,
Yeah,
and it clearly says that their administrative costs, your administrative cost should be capped at 10%,
yeah.
and 10%, you know, is not enough. So are you suggesting you go ahead and apply and budget above that 10%, but also submit your cost recovery policy along with documentation? Or would you say ignore that grant? Because I think one of the previous speakers suggested to not apply for that grant at all. So I want to know what your clear position or
just
advice
to clarify, the other person said that there are some donors that tell you outrightly they are not paying for support services. They are just paying for project implementation. So that's what he said. But in terms of your question, if they are saying they are giving you 10%, I mean, it's good. Why would you not take it? Because one thing I want you to understand is that cost that they are giving you, that administrative cost, does not stop you from, it has nothing to do with the salaries of the project. Because the salary of the personnel working on that project has to be paid, but might be maybe 5% or 10%, depending on what the donor says they will be paying for time, depending on also the activities that you want to do, right? But what I'm asking you to recover the cost that I'm talking about is the other administrative costs, say building, internet, rates, and all that. That's the one I'm talking about here. That most organizations will allow you, depending on the donor. Some EU organizations, they give you 8% as cost recovery. They allow you, based on how much. Now, what they tie is 8% of what you are able to spend. Say your donor, your project is $10,000, and then they bill in 8% of $10,000, whatever it is, that let's say $800. Now, if at the end of the year you are only able to spend 6,000 on the project, and for some reasons you couldn't spend completely 10%, you're not taking that 800, you're now going to be giving 600 as part of your core cost. That's what I mean. When I talk about the cost recovery, this is what I mean. But we have a full session on it that people will just talk about, which also takes you how to write the proposal and what goes into that proposal as well. There was another hand in Wellum first. So I can look for those resources and share with you so it doesn't complicate what I'm talking about. Okay, Bliss, you can go ahead, and then Bernard, and then Taiwo.
Hello, myself.
Hello. All right. Thank you.
Yeah, Bliss, after that, Bliss, go ahead.
Okay, thank you for the opportunity again. So, I wanted to ask, is it in case maybe from the inception of the project, you initially sent out a policy to your donor and then you review that policy, is it okay to communicate that policy again? For instance, maybe the first policy does not include your full cost recovery, and then you now send another one to an updated version of the policy. Is it advisable, or you just ignore it and just work with the initial contract to the end of the project? Then, what's your advice about regarding, having internal receipts for the organization, just like the illustration you gave, um, um, having to, have receipts for car hire and other expenses that, that you did not spend that money, but you have those receipts that you use to, that you generate the costs that you did not incur in that project. What's your advice regarding that?
So again, let me clarify. I said that I didn't say you didn't spend it. I said in some organizations, right? So they have, say they are doing transportation and all that. Instead of them, because they have office vehicles, they are using their office vehicle in place of the public transportation. They have to charge for that. So that's some of the ways they get their cost. But it doesn't mean that you didn't. You cannot say you didn't do anything and then you're charging for it. That'll be automatically, that'll be fraud. But I'm saying that you went for this work and then you use your office vehicles to do that. But as a policy, you're recovering costs because that vehicle, you bought fuel on it, you bought, there's a driver that is attached to that vehicle, you're doing servicing on that vehicle. So you find a way to recover the cost, by either using internal receipts or for those other organizations that have opened, say, they have like car hire services or taxis that they use. They use their own vehicles also as those taxi companies. That's what I was trying to say, but not that you didn't do anything. And if you don't do anything and you're just charging, that's not correct. That would be fraud. That will go ahead, please. And we're wrapping up.
I have my sister question, sir.
Thank you.
You can type the question, please. Just type it,
okay.
Please.
All right.
Thank you. I just wanted to buttress to support what you said, like the car, this thing now. Let me start from there. Like, even you have your own private vehicle and you use it. Most time we do it, but we don't charge.
Yeah.
Maybe 2-3 years, the car now gets grounded. So we are learning. So it's good we charge it. Then the other lady, yes, I think recent corrected what I said was like administrative. There's no project you want to do and 10% will not be enough for the administrative charges. Administrative charges does not include personnel. So if your project exceeds 10%, it means that project is not viable. So we have to do the costing very well because no funder will now give you 15, 20% for administrative charges. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you so much, everyone. And Bernard, your hand was still up again.
Thank you. I'm done.
Okay, thank you. So I want to appreciate everybody who's been part of it. We're emailing you the slides. You're going to get it. But people ask my number, so you can just. I've shared my contacts there, and I'm also available on Instagram, Facebook, and on LinkedIn. It's there in the chat for those who want to reach out. We do have a Telegram group for people, just basically because I know that people belong to different WhatsApp groups, but we are on it. We have a Telegram group. If you're interested in joining, all we do is talk about trainings, workshops. There are no opportunities to discuss other matters. So if you post anything that is not in line with what we are doing, we'll just delete the post just to keep it sane. It's on Telegram. For people who have Telegram, you can chat. So the next one will be in 2 weeks. Unfortunately, time, we can't continue beyond this, but I do appreciate you. But we are continuing the series on sustainability. We're delving into it deeper, as everybody should have resources to be able to carry out your mission. So next week, I would confirm the guests that we have. I'm just trying to, once they've confirmed that they are going to join, I will announce again on email. So you're going to get emails from me. Again, everyone who's registered, I'll use those registration to send you emails as well. So I want to thank everyone for your time. It's never easy. Saturdays are usually very busy for people, but it's the only day that I have that doesn't conflict with the other work that we're doing. And I appreciate you. As long as you're available on Saturdays, we'll also be available to continue to provide it. So thank you so much. It's been wonderful reconnecting with some of our old participants and also welcoming the very new ones. Thank you so much and have a lovely Saturday afternoon and evening for those outside of Nigeria. Thank you.
Thank you so much for the wonderful job.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.